Okay, well, actually, let's just start there then. So, one aspect also of this discussion is, listen, we'll definitely have a discussion about talent base, how you develop talent, all the rest of it, because that's a key angle that I notice a lot of fans key in on. But one area I feel like is a little bit disingenuous, even when fans say that, is the same fans who want you to develop all the talent. They're not the hugest fans in the world of the teams that just go with all the NA players and, let's face it, as a result, not the very good players. Like, the teams that they're the fans of are the ones with the big imports in. So, for me, as long as it's possible to import, and as long as places like Europe speak English and have really good players, it's going to be natural to put some imports in your team if you're building an NA squad, especially as, like, if we're going to start developing talent, we're not going to have 5 LCS players ready to be champions and go to Worlds immediately. So you're going to have some imports. So let's start at the top end of the equation, where both of you have done a very good job the last few years, particularly, obviously, Steve's been willing to spend big for some of the names. Like, I mean, I always think that angle that they all degrade doesn't quite work for like people like Core JJ. Looks pretty amazing to me, mate. It looks like he's still in really good form. So what I want to ask is, either he can start on this one. That topic right there has been a big issue. I've also heard it myself a lot more this year than past years. In the past, what would happen is, I don't think many players really themselves would admit that they were selling out if they went to NA. But what they would do is this, and I can tell you from knowing a lot of them as friends, they would look at their options in Europe. Either they've already won a bunch of championships in Europe, and this is before the days, so I'm thinking of people who went to TSM, like Mithy and Sven. That's before they actually even thought you could win Worlds or something from Europe. So they thought, right, well, if I'm going to come like top 8 or top 4 anyway, I may as well go and get paid 4 times more by TSM and be in the same position, right? So that was fine. Or they're guys where, this could be something people might say about Alfari here, they've never been on a team that won the championship. So their logic in the past would have been, right, unless I can get into, it would now be G2 or Fnatic, the absolute best European teams, then is it really different to be on the 3rd or 4th best European team but get paid more if I play for Team Liquid or Cloud9, TSM? So that's how they used to like weigh it up then. But I have noticed this off-season in particular, you've even seen it in interviews, some European players have just admitted the disparity in the amount you can get if you go to NA wasn't enough to overwhelm them if they thought there was any chance in Europe now, especially with all the rookies and stuff. So where do you guys come on that one? Like, in the past, if you were trying to lure someone over, was it just a case of showing them a big salary or showing them some good players? How has it changed in that regard?
Yeah, for me, I mean, we've imported players, I don't know, for the last 8 years or so. And so I would say the main reason why a player wants to come to Team Liquid, it's winning. They want to join a team that is going to perform well and have a chance at winning a championship, which I would say we've been able to improve on given winning, some championships. And they wouldn't come over or join the team unless they thought they could. And roster comes first. So it's, okay, what player's coming in? I'll come if that player comes. And if that player brings this player, then yes, I'll join the team, but only if you can get these components. That's the bulk of the conversation. Sure. That's a requirement. Compensation is a portion of that. I think North America does a better job on the team side in generating revenue for teams than probably our counterparts in Europe. There's some reasons for that. It's harder to monetize a team in Europe because of there being so many different countries, so many different languages.
Sure.
There's not as many sponsors that have budgets across different countries within Europe, where there's more international clients in NA that have global budgets, even though we have an NA team.
Sure.
And so, yeah, we have, I don't think any of the successful teams in North America are going to apologize for running a successful business and having more capital to then pass down to players, right? I think we should be paying players a portion of what we get. Teams shouldn't be holding and retaining profits, just because the market average globally. Like, if NA teams are earning more, we're going to pay more to players. And so I think it's a side effect of the business, but also, yes, I think that's part of the reason, but I don't think it's the driving force. I think it's, at least the conversations that I've had, has always been about winning and building a good team.
Like, if you look at, for me, like the tipping point for this question and where the problems really became real was after 2018 when Fnatic got to finals.
That was the game changer, you think?
that was the game changer, because now Europe saw like, hey, they could be winning, worlds. And like, I know it wasn't just me. I can't speak for what Steve did, but I was basically open. Here's my checkbook. Write in whatever number you want into it, Caps, and come on over. And he told me, there is no number. I think I can win worlds with this team. So it doesn't matter. It's not the money. I want a chance to actually win. And for me, that was the first time I'd ever heard that, like, so direct. And I was like, uh-oh, this is scary, because I think this is a trend that's going to continue. And then with our bad performance in 2019, our not great performance in this year in 2020, I think it only has solidified that concern. And so I think it's something we're going to need to address. We either need to show better performance at Worlds in 2021 to start taking us back to a place where we're showing to be more competitive, or there needs to be some changes, like in the import rules, like maybe they loosen them up. Maybe we can, I love what they did with us, have us having access to Australian players. Maybe that could be, spread out to other areas. But there are several things that could be done to make this better, and I hope that we can, flesh out some of those right now.
Even though, listen, like when you describe it that way, like I can understand why Caps might think that. Do you actually think those players are right, though? I mean, I can certainly understand it. Like, I actually think that's an area where I feel fans have also skewed the discussion a bit. If you're G2, like G2 is an outlier. Even Fnatic, the difference between Fnatic and the top NA teams wasn't as crazy as people made out. Like, there's a, like, if you look at them, they weren't very good in the summer. They might have even made it to Worlds. Like, they kind of turned it around. They had a nice meta. Like, it wasn't like, for me, the G2 team is like that's a lightning in a bottle. I don't know how Carlos got those players, got them to, like, he got the two best mid laners on one team. There's a bunch of special factors to that one. Are the players right in the sense? Like, I mean, if I bring a player over who's an AD carry, Steve, and I can tell him he can play with Core JJ, that's as good as any European support player. There's no reason why he has to feel as though, like, why staying in Europe so important if they think they want to win, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always there's only a handful of teams that are able to put together what is perceived to be very competitive rosters going in to the spring split, right? It's not like of the 10 teams, seven of them look really great and have a chance at winning a championship.
Right.
It's usually there's 2 or 3,
yes.
Or maybe there's 1. And like, because of that, if you're in Europe and you're trying to go and win a world championship or have a really good shot at doing that, and those opportunities within the region that you're in are not available, then yes, I can also have a chance looking to North America to also have a chance at winning, because I don't want to play for a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th place team in Europe, right? And I think we've demonstrated that we've had places where we've performed better. It just hasn't been consistent, right? Like our MSI run that we made, which was amazing, right?
Sure.
Like beating the incumbents, and Jack has had some great performance. It's about consistency. And also, it's our best team doesn't compare to the best team in Europe more consistently, right? Like the fact that TSM was the number 1 seed and then went 0-6.
Sure.
That is a stigma that now NA has to deal with because of the team's performance, right? People won't maybe remember how TL did because it's just so bad how TSM performed. And that is the lingering memory, which is unfortunate because that is then the narrative, not how we did, right? Even though it was close to, hand grenades and horseshoes, doesn't matter, but
sure.
We didn't do well enough. And so that when you have enough of those add up over time, then you just get the EU's greater than NA narrative. And but I actually don't agree that it's always about bigger paychecks in NA as being the reason. At least based on one-on-one conversations with players, I feel like they are going for a team that they think they can win on.
Yes. I actually think, by the way, just in general in esports, that is one thing that's misunderstood. Like you say, certainly salary's a big deal. Like I'm sure salary's the second question once they decide if they have the right players. But I've noticed players are very cagey. Like as much as like when people say sellout moves like that, put it this way, I'll give everyone a spoiler if you're a European fan. All those really big name European players who went to NA but joined the bad teams and got paid a lot, they didn't get offers from the top teams. Like that was when they were on the years where they were down in their career. So they might play it off like I went for the money. It's like, well, they did. They didn't have the option, you know. Like it's not like they decided to go. I'll just give it one that isn't an example. Like Golden Guardian, they didn't go to Golden Guardians over Cloud9. Like if they went to Golden Guardians, that means actually they were probably choosing between 6th place in Europe and 6th place in NA. So people definitely skew that a bit. Like in general, players want to play with good players, right? So isn't that part of also the equation here to get the right imports? Along those lines, by the way, one thing I have to ask you is, one thing Europe obviously doesn't do, because it doesn't need to now with the rookies, is they don't do Korean imports anymore. That's not really a thing. There's like you get the rare one that's over there, and they're not in the top teams at the moment. Is there anything that's changed in that regard? In your team, maybe not. You got the MVP, but is it time to move away from Korean imports for LCS? Should they be Europeans, for example, in those slots?
Hold on 1 second. I'll be right back. I need to close the door.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak for TL's perspective, and then maybe I'll comment on what I think just generally in NA. From TL's perspective, we put a lot of infrastructure in place to help with having Korean players. Like we have translator, we had a head coach, we had an assistant coach that was bilingual. Like, so we felt like we had adopted that, and we put that in place when Piglet came over, and we just stuck with it. And so then we built upon that, and then we had tutors, and we put a program in place with UCLA so our players could go over there and do classes. Like we just started to build a structure. Then all of a sudden we were like, oh wow, we have like a really great ability to have Korean players come over and feel very comfortable within Team Liquid because we have the right support staff. That being said, I think the biggest change I saw for the regions was that a lot of Korean players, instead of thinking about coming to NA first, thought about going to China.
Right.
And when that happened, it was, I think, closer proximity wise. There was like more relationships with agents there. There were also billionaires that were ready to pay big salaries for some of the top talent. And then at the same time, with franchising happening in Korea, there was a requirement for academy programs and to field those teams and to build facilities. And when that happened, then the talent that would have otherwise came to NA ended up just staying in Korea.
Right.
And if they didn't go, and so I think the side effect was that I think you saw less players finding NA desirable, maybe not because of what was happening in NA, but what was more or less happening in China. That's my personal POV, though.
Okay. Where do you come down, Jack?
I think it's really accurate. I think as we've seen the LPL get stronger and stronger, it's become more and more attractive to the top Korean players. So NA wasn't their first pick. And Cloud9, much like what they did at Team Liquid, we have a lot of Korean staff. We know how to really be respectful of the culture of the people that are coming over and make sure they can integrate well with ours. And I think so it's definitely like, I would be happy to have more Korean players, absolutely. But I think we've just seen a lot more competition from other regions. So we're just not the first pick anymore.